Welcome to session 7 of the Simple course. In the first part of the session today, we continue presenting the stress tolerance skills. In the second part, we will introduce Hol's diary cards, the second simple tool. To watch our introductory video entitled 10 Types of Mental Illness, please pause this video now and open session 7 on the website itsimple2021.com. Next are our usual reminders directed mostly at participants doing the course in a group. Please take a few moments to read these on your own. To watch this week's mindfulness practice video, please go to the website now. Let's start by reviewing what we will do today. We will start by looking at the skills training workbook, pages 33 to 46, advanced tolerance skills. These include safe place visualization, cue controlled relaxation, rediscovering your values, values-based behavior, higher power. After this, we will have a break and then time for questions, comments, feedback, and discussion. In the second part of the session, we'll cover the simple manual session 7, which deals with introducing the second simple tool, Hol's diary card. And if you can take a moment now to rate your homework, give yourself a number from 0 to 10 and write it down at the back of your notebook. Remember, this is for your eyes only. For those doing the course as part of a group, you can now go to a period for questions, comments, and feedback. As we introduce new distress tolerance skills, don't forget to keep practicing and tracking the ones you've already learned. The skills diary card can be helpful with this. To watch a video about distress tolerance skills, please go to the website now. As part of the homework for the last week, we asked you to read pages 33 to 46 of the Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Skills Workbook, second edition. In what follows, we will cover the key points from this section of the workbook. This summary is not meant to replace you having read these pages in the workbook and tried the exercises. Today, we're going to cover several DBT skills: safe place visualization, cue control relaxation, rediscovering your values, rehearsing value-based behavior, and connecting with your higher power. Safe space visualization is a stress reduction technique. The workbook recommends that you imagine a safe and relaxing place. This is effective because our bodies respond to visualization and can tell the difference between what is happening in our environment and what it is that we're visualizing. It's important to use this technique in a quiet place free from distractions. This safe place can be somewhere real, perhaps somewhere you've been to, or it can be an imaginary place. The workbook provides guided instructions on how to go through the visualization. Follow the instructions before you try to do the visualization on your own. One option is to record your own voice reading the instructions from the workbook and then listen to the recording. You can find many safe place visualizations on YouTube. The more you practice visualizing a safe place, the easier it'll be for you to access it, even in a crisis. Practice it as often as you can. This can be a very useful skill. The idea in cue-controlled relaxation is to develop a cue, such as a word, that your body associates with relaxation. This word could be anything. For example, the word relax. It could also be a mantra, such as I am safe and relaxed. The idea is to pair this cue with muscular relaxation. The instructions for how to do this can be found in the workbook. For this technique to be effective, you have to practice it repeatedly. pairing the cue word or sentence with the muscular relaxation practice. This technique can take time to master, but once you've mastered it, can be very effective. The workbook suggests practicing this twice a day until your mind starts to automatically make the association between the cue word and the relaxation response. Everyone's values are different. Values are your ethics, principles, ideals, standards, or morals. Remembering your values can support you in tolerating distress. It's easy to forget your values, for example, the importance of relationships, or continuing on a path to growth. The workbook suggests you fill out the Valued Living questionnaire, which can help you identify your values. The Valued Living questionnaire lists common values and asks you to rate how important they are for you on a scale of 0 to 10. It then asks you to look at the values you rated highly and ask yourself how much time you commit to them. This helps you to identify discrepancies between what you're actually doing and your values. You may also find that you put a lot of time and energy into activities that you don't value highly. You can also find in the workbook a committed action worksheet that may help you to develop a plan to realign your actions with your values. When trying to realign our actions with our values, we will face barriers and challenges. These may be negative thoughts such as, I can't do this. We can imagine ourselves in the situation and get a sense of the barriers that are coming up. In face of these barriers, we can imagine ourselves carrying through with our values-based behavior and completing our goals. We can also imagine how people might react when we carry them through. This skill also needs to be repeatedly practiced in the imagination before you can expect to become good at it. The last skill in this section of the workbook is connecting with your higher power. Here, the term higher power is defined as it is in Alcoholics Anonymous, not necessarily as God, but as something that makes us feel empowered, calm, and safe. It's a connection to the bigger picture and something bigger than ourselves. This connection can help us tolerate distressing feelings. Examples of a higher power can be nature, the universe, or the goodness of others. What can you do to connect with your higher power? You can start by asking yourself the following questions. What are some of your beliefs about a higher power that give you strength and comfort? Why are these beliefs important to you? How do these beliefs make you feel? How do these beliefs make you feel about others? How do these beliefs make you feel about life in general? How do you acknowledge your beliefs through your daily life? What else would you be willing to do in order to strengthen your beliefs? What can you do to remind yourself of your beliefs on a regular basis? How can you remind yourself of your beliefs when feeling distressed? Asking yourself these questions on a regular basis helps you to connect to something bigger than yourself. In the second half of the session today, we introduced the second simple tool, the Holds Diary card. The first simple tool is crisis plans. Today, we introduce the second simple tool, Holds Diary cards. Today, we're introducing Holds Diary cards. Can you tell us more about them? We will introduce the Holds Diary cards by explaining what they are, how to do them, and why do them. We will do that by covering 5 topics. 1, the similarities and differences between the crisis plan's holes and the diary card targets. 2, topography. 3, finding your targets for change. 4, why do a Holds Diary card? And 5, making a diary card a habit. This is the Holds Diary card template. On the first horizontal column at the top of the card are the days of the month from 1 to 31. On the first vertical column on the left-hand side of the card are blank spaces where you will insert the targets which you have chosen to work on. We will talk about targets later today. This is what a Holds Diary card that is being used might look like. Are there any connections between the first tool, crisis plans, and the second, Holds Diary cards? Answering that question is our first topic today. And yes, there are connections between the crisis plan's holes and the diary card targets. The holes you fall into in a crisis are very similar to the targets in the holes diary card. You're already familiar with the concept of falling into holes. When we are in a crisis, we fall into a hole. The crisis plans are ways of getting out of these holes faster and eventually avoiding them. What holes were to crisis plans, targets are to diary cards. Targets are short for targets for change. They are thoughts, feelings, or behaviors that are dysregulated and that we want to change. Targets are very similar to holes. Crises are all or nothing. Either you are in a crisis hole or you're not. Diary cards recognize that there are different severities or intensities of dysregulated feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. The metaphor we use for crisis is that of a hole, while the one we use for diary cards is that of stairs with steps. In simple, we arbitrarily choose stairs that have 10 steps, each step representing different intensities of dysregulated feelings, thoughts, or behaviors, which we call the target for change, or just target. 10 is the bottom step of the stairs. 1 is the top step, closest to the sidewalk. 10 is the most intense. 1 the least. If you prefer, instead of using a 1 to 10 scale, you can use colors, for example, yellow, orange, red, black. It may be easier for you to visualize diary card steps doing this way. To understand Hole's diary cards, you have to understand their topography. Isn't that a term from geography? Topography in geography is the arrangement of the physical features of a certain terrain. Topography in simple refers to how the intensity of targets fluctuate over time. It maps your journey up and down the stairs. The topography of your target dysregulated feelings, thoughts, or behaviors is a graph representing the variations in intensity of these feelings, thoughts, and behaviors over time. These variations can occur faster or slower. You may, for example, spend a lot of time at a particular step on the stairs, or you may go up and down the stairs quite rapidly. Understanding the topography of your target feelings, thoughts, or behaviors means understanding how quickly they start and how long they last. The duration of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you target for change can range from a few seconds or minutes all the way to them being with you most of the time. How do you find your targets for change? Diary card targets are the same as crisis plans holds, with one difference. Crisis plans holds are all or nothing. You're either in a crisis or you're not. Diary card targets vary in intensity from mild to severe. Like crisis plans holds, diary card targets are dysregulated physical states, emotions, thoughts, behaviors, or maladaptive coping strategies that recur in your life and that you decided are problematic and want to change. Examples are the same we considered when we were finding the holes for our crisis plans. They include substance abuse, gambling, or any other addiction, engaging in dysfunctional social interactions, self-blaming and excessive rumination, excessive irritability or anger towards others. Targets can also be any of the holes suggested in item 1 of the crisis plan template, such as anxiety, anger, despair, problems with boundaries, impulsive behaviors, behaviors a person later regrets, withdrawing or running away, and thinking of or actually hurting yourself or others. There are beginner, intermediate, and advanced targets. All the above examples are of intermediate targets. If you have trouble finding an intermediate target, use a beginner target in your diary card instead. Beginner targets are more general and catch-all than intermediate ones. They are easier to use than the more specific intermediate targets. Beginner targets may be struggling, feeling bad, being upset, losing it, or getting into trouble. Later in the course, we will explore advanced targets, which are internal family systems part selves. If you don't know what this means, don't worry, we'll get to it. Like holes, diary card targets can be feelings, and to help you identify your feelings, consult the Wheel of Feelings. We also used it in trying to identify our crisis plans holes. They can be thoughts, and consider the automatic negative thoughts, or they can be behaviors, and consult the list of externalizing versus internalizing behaviors. They can also be maladaptive coping strategies, which are defined as coping strategies that in the short term decrease your distress, but increase it over the long term. Examples of this are substance use, self harm, and unhealthy eating. The Wheel of Feelings, the list of cognitive errors and automatic negative thoughts, and the table of internalizing and externalizing behaviors helped you find your holes. They can also help you to find your targets, which may be the same as your crisis plans holes or different from them. There is an algorithm for finding your intermediate targets. One, think about when you've been in a hole, lost it, struggled, felt bad, got into trouble, or were very upset. These are beginner targets. Two, when that happened, what were your feelings, thoughts, or behaviors? You might use the Wheel of Feelings, thinking errors, and ants, and the internalizing and externalizing behavior to help you here. Three, choose from 1 to 3 feelings, thoughts, or behaviors that you experience frequently and or are consequential for you. 4, use this as your intermediate target. Intermediate targets change over time, so repeat this process once in a while, especially if your circumstances are changing. I can see the importance of doing crisis plans. Why should we do Hole's diary cards? In order to change the behaviors, thoughts, or feelings that you have chosen as targets, one, you have to identify what they are. Two, you have to keep focusing, being aware, and being mindful of them. Diary cards promote mindfulness by keeping you focused on and thinking about your behaviors, thoughts, or feelings that you want to change. Crisis plans are a good tool to use when you're at the bottom of the hole. Diary cards help you to become more mindful of when your targets, thoughts, feelings, or behaviors arise and you're not in a full crisis. Diary cards are the foundation you need in order to use the other tools and skills we'll be presenting in the rest of the course. Just like building a house requires a foundation, frame, wiring, and plumbing in that right order. Don't confuse the Holes diary card with the DBT skills diary card or the goals diary card, which is tool number 5. There are different versions of Holes diary cards. For example, some people don't want to leave a paper trail, use electronic ones. Developing new healthy habits, such as doing Holes diary cards, can be very challenging. Do you have any suggestions that might help? Once you have found your targets, Holes diary cards are the simplest tool to use, yet one of the most essential and helpful. Doing them will literally take you just a few seconds every day. The returns you will get on those few seconds are enormous. If you're only going to use one tool, use this one. There are many resources that provide advice as to how to develop healthy habits. The book Tiny Habits describes ways to develop healthy habits. To watch a video summarizing BJ Fogg's book Tiny Habits about developing healthy habits, please go to the website now. For people who are doing the course as part of a group, if in the coming weeks you'd like to volunteer to work with us during one of the sessions at Finding Your Targets, please email us or let us know during the session. The same applies if you'd like to practice any other tools that we introduce in the future. On the PowerPoint presentation that you will find on the website, there's a review and practice component that covers the tools, techniques, and strategies that we have previously covered in the simple course. Looking over these slides will help you consolidate the material. Let's look at the homework for this session. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and see you next session.